mann som öklar bruk och snusbullar.
Hello everyone, hello world, it's Shauna with Disrupt. Things like how to use IDs and classes, a brief introduction of how to do a boilerplate code. We learned about spans and paragraphs, and we got into inline and block level elements, and we learned about inline block styling. We got into a little bit into margins, we got into padding, and we got into float. And in this lesson, I want to get into basic layout, and we'll start learning about divs. And if you remember, I talked about divs. You can think of them as a kind of like a container. And so far in this tutorial, we haven't used any divs. So we're going to start using divs now, and I'll go ahead and explain that. And let me change the topic here. We'll just add divs for right now. And let's go ahead and just get rid of all this code. Start fresh. And let's type in, let's get our first div, shall we? And all you have to do is start typing DI, and you get the div up here, right? You can either click it here or complete it and hit tab, and then you'll make your first div. Now, to properly format your divs, and you want to format your code as you go along, so we'll go ahead and hit enter to create some spaces. Now, before we were just putting our spans out here in the body, which is okay to do, and you can put your text in there, but that's you can do that, but it's not the proper way to do it. You really should always, it's a good practice to put all of your contents within a div, and you'll understand as you go along why it's better to do this, because it keeps things organized for anybody else who comes to your code and has to make any changes. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete that. And let's put in a p tag. And we'll just say test content. Hit Control S. And then we'll tighten it up. And for demonstration purposes, I still want to use some of the classes we had before. And we'll come down here to the block class that we've been using. And let me go ahead and delete that, all of this, and we're going to say the block class is going to have a background of blue violet. So we'll copy that, we'll come in here and we'll apply that class so we can see what will happen. This div should be that color, right? Hit Control S to save. We'll come to our web page here and then refresh the page. And we've got our test content is now in the div, and the div is now that violet color, right? In our previous videos, where if you just have the test content by itself as a standalone entity by itself, and we've applied that block class to the test content. Let's go ahead and refresh. So you'll see the difference, what happens. You're applying this to the tag, right? And you'll see that the element, the P element, has no padding. Okay, so we've applied the colors so you can see the difference, right? Now, these P tags, let's go ahead and copy this again, and Control V to paste, Control S to save, and refresh. So you can see that you have a big gap here. So P tags, they inherently have a margin. They have a top margin and a bottom margin. And you have to remember that CSS were modeled after books and newspapers. So a paragraph you see in the paper has a margin on the top and a margin on the bottom. So that's why when we look in here, we have the div class, right? You have the div class, and you have the p tag as a child within the div class. So when we put that p into this div here, it's going to automatically put a margin. So you have to be mindful of these things when you start working within your divs. Now, let's change this to a span and see what happens. And for demonstration purposes, I'll change this to a span content. And let's see what happens now. Hit Control S, and let's see what happens now. Well, it collapsed the border. And you got to remember that p tags are a block level element, and they have inherently the margins, right? But again, the span is an inline element, and it doesn't have an inherent margin on the top and bottom. So that's why it seems like everything is collapsing, and you call that margin collapse because the span doesn't have a margin. So you have to be mindful of these things when you work with the divs. Alrighty, so now I want to talk about divs and layout. So let's go ahead and get rid of that, and we'll leave it as a div for now. We'll put div 01 to denote this whole thing. We're not saying the span is a div, but we're just saying the div will be div 01. Okay, let's Control C that to copy it, Control V, and then we'll come down here and hit Control V again. So we'll change this to div 2, and we'll change this to div 3. And let's see what happens. Come here, hit refresh. Okay, so we'll see here we've got div 1, div 2, and div 3, and I want to go ahead and let me change that color. I want to change it to something a little bit lighter, so it'll be easier to see. Let's roll with that color. Let's see how that works. Control S, come in here. Okay, that's easier to see. So you have your div 1, div 2, and div 3. Well, they're all run together. And for layout, a trick that I kind of learned a long time ago is to put a border on the inside of the div. And to do that, you can do that a couple ways, and I'll show you one of the ways that I have done it in the past. And down here I have these pre-coded things I have, and it says use without box sizing border or use with box sizing border. What this test is this will draw on the inside of the div element, it'll draw a thin line. And box shadow is it's a styling element that'll throw a shadow off the element, but you can make it to where it makes a thin single line and not a shadow, and you use the inset flag here to prevent it from going outside of the element. And I'll go over box shadow later when we actually style our application. So I want to take this test class and copy it, and I want to put it in to our div classes. I'll hit Control V to paste, make a space, Control V to paste, make a space, Control V to paste. We'll hit Control S, and we'll come back to our page, and let's refresh it. So now you can see that we have these lines, and you can see up here at the top they're all 1 pixel, and here you can see that it's thick. It's 2 pixels, and that's because the bottom of this div is hitting the top of that div. And the natural behavior of a div, they're going to stack on top of each other, and so that's why it looks like it's 2 pixels, but it's still 1. Now let me go ahead and demonstrate that it is 1 pixel indeed. So we'll come up to our block class, and we'll put a margin bottom of let's do 8 pixels this time for something different. Okay, go ahead and hit save. We'll come to our page, refresh, and there we go. We have an 8 pixel margin bottom. So you can see now that it is truly 1 pixel all the way around. But what I want to do is I want to go ahead and uncomment that out. Or I want to go ahead and comment that out, because the way that I've done my own frameworks is I like to use divs to stack on each other like blocks. So let's go ahead and refresh. So that stacks everything back on top, right? You can come in here and have this test class to make sure everything's lining up. Now what happens if we change this span to a P? And we'll change this to a P. Control S to save, and we'll come to our page and hit refresh. Well, what happened? Why is there a gap? We didn't specify a gap anymore, right? And then we put the P here, and it created a gap. It created a margin on the bottom, even though here this class doesn't have a bottom. And you'll see that you can see here like P is a block element, and we have our inline elements that don't have the margin on them, inherent margins, but the P does. And so again, this is one of those things that makes CSS frustrating, that when you apply a P within a div, it creates a gap. It creates a margin between the divs, even though the divs aren't styled that way. And this is a headache you're going to have to deal with and learn about when you're styling with CSS. So how do we fix this? How do we get it to stack normally like we want it to, like we expect it to? Well, let's come in here and comment this out. And let's go margin bottom 0. And hit Control S. We'll come back here and hit refresh. Well, that didn't work. Well, that's fun. Well, how about we come in here and we do float left. Hit Control S, and well, that didn't work. That screwed everything up, but we're going to use this later on. All right, so let's go ahead and hit Control Z to get rid of all that, right? Well, how do we get this to do what we want it to do? Well, this is why I like to use inline-block, because I can come in here and I can control this. And for the frameworks that I have developed and that I use for all my applications, as I mentioned before, I use a percentage, and I use inline-block styling heavily for this reason. So let's go ahead and make a new class, and we're going to name this class child. All right, and later on in the series you'll understand why I named it child. And what we want to do is we want to make it, we'll take the background color, we'll just use that color we've been using, we'll copy it, and then we'll come in here and we'll make this display. We'll come down here to inline block. So we're going to make any element we style this with will be an inline block element. All right. So let's go ahead and take the child and how to do the quick change everything at once is you highlight what you want to change. So we're going to change the block class, right? Hold Control and hit D, and hit D again until you have all of them highlighted. And now you can just hit Control V to paste, and that's a quick way to change everything all at one time. So hit Control S to apply those changes, and then hit Control S again to apply the changes on the CSS, and let's see what happens. Alright, so now remember we're using the inline block style, so everything's going to be going left to right and then top to bottom, because that's the behavior, the overriding behavior when you use an inline block. So if we want to make these childs, if we want to make them 100%, we need to tell it, hey, be 100%. So I will go with 100%. Control S to save. We'll come back to our page and we'll hit refresh. Hey, everything's 100% again. And look at that. we have our p tag, which was, if you remember, it was pushing that we had a gap, right, the white space in between the two divs. Well, by applying the inline block with the width, this got rid of that default behavior, which caused the margin collapse, right, or the margin push out, if you want to call it that. And now everything's stacking. Oops. And now everything's stacking like we would expect it to, right? So you can see now. Let me go ahead and zoom out. I know I have it really zoomed in, but let me get back to 100 or close to 100. So you can see that everything is stacking like we want it. And all right, let's go ahead and just put another one in here for good measure. Div 4, Control S to save, come back to our page, refresh. So everything is stacking normally. The divs are stacking normally again, but then you're going to notice that it's still the p tag, right? The p tag from our HTML, it still has its top and bottom margin, while our inline tags, the spans, they are retaining the inline behavior of having no top and bottom margins, right? Okay, so let's do something more fun, more interesting. How about we change this width to 50%? And hit Control S to save. Well, what's going to happen? Well, everything shrunk to 50%. And let's zoom out and zoom in, so it's remaining 50% of the screen. So what happens if we change this to 25%? Well, hey, let's go ahead and change it. Control S to save, and then refresh. Well, what's happening now? Well, there's a couple of things we need to talk about what's going on. Now, you remember we talked about earlier that it's not, when you say something is like a div is 100% of the screen. Let me go back in here and change that to 100. Control S to save, and then hit refresh. It pushes everything back out. Well, you got to remember, we've got all these here on the left. Let me zoom in real quick. We've got these margins on the left, and that's because of the HTML root document and the body. There's always going to be a gap around the body and the HTML root. So you have to, when you start laying things out, you're going to have to be mindful of this and get rid of that gap. So let me go ahead and show you how to get rid of that gap, okay? So we're going to come up to our body, that's going to say, hey, body, do the styles that I tell you. And I want to say margin 0. Hit Control S, right? And we'll come in here and we'll hit refresh. Now the divs stretch the entire width of the screen, okay? They stretch the entire width of the screen. And as I zoom out, you can see they stretch, zoom in, they stretch the full width of the screen. And this will be very important to know when you lay out your own framework, all right? So let's come down here and let's change our child to 50%. All right. Control S to save and hit refresh. All right. So now our elements are 50%, right? And I'm zooming in and out to show you that they remain 50% of the screen. All right, well, let's come in here and let's change that to 25%. Control S to save, and then hit refresh. Well, what's going on here? Well, now, as you'll see here, we've got the white space. So even we've got a white space here. And then what happens is, even though these divs are calculated to be 25% of the screen width, right? But the inherent property with when you change the inline block to 50 or 25%, you're going to have a gap on the right hand side, a margin on the right hand side. So that's why it's wrapping around. You would intuitively think that 25%, 25%, 25%, and that when this div 4 would be right here at 25%, but it's not. So for the layout to fix that, we come to our child class, and we'll say, we want to say, hey, I don't want a margin there. So we come in here and we put margin 0. And then Control S to save and hit refresh. Well, it didn't work. Well, what's going on? Okay, well, it's not working. Frustrating. So this is where we talked about float and like yesterday about float. So let's add float left. Hit Control S. We'll come here and refresh. Now it all fits like it's supposed to, right? Now it fits like you would intuitively think it should. And let's go ahead and zoom in and then zoom out and then zoom in and zoom out. And by using this method right here, by using the inline block, and let's go ahead and get rid of that margin, hit Control S and see what happens. So you don't need that margin and it doesn't do anything. So by using a simple inline block with a width of 25% and the float left, you can start to see how we can build our own simple framework without needing to have a really bloated, obtuse framework out there that are so popular. And as you'll see, let me zoom in here. Of course, this still retains, even by doing this float left, this still retains the inherent behavior of the block P tag, which has, again, it has a margin top and a margin bottom, and it also retains the default behavior of the spans inside of the div, right? And they don't have, the spans, they're inline and they don't have a top and bottom margin. So by doing this method, you'll need to know and remember that the various block and inline are going to retain their behaviors, their default behaviors. So this is really good. All right, so we've got that going on. And so now you've got the margins from this P, this block P, this block element P has the top and bottom margins, and it's bigger than these other ones that have the inline span elements, right? So this will come into play when you want to build your own framework. And what you can do if you want to make everything a uniform size is you can come in here and you can hit min, start typing min, and you'll see min width, min height. And let's just say for practicality's sake, let's say 200 pixels. Or you can use rem. I like to use rem, but for this demo, to get some exposure, I'll use 200 pixels. We'll hit S, we'll come here, and then we'll hit refresh. And hey, everything is now 200 pixels, right? And you'll have to be careful of this because you'll have to deal with overflow. If you're not careful about how you do your layout and you style your elements, this stuff will overflow. And let me do a quick demo of that real quick. Let me go ahead and copy that and then paste this a bunch of times, hold down V. And I'm just showing this for funsies, right? Maybe that should be enough. So now you can see that now this is pushing the element down further, right? Because the default behavior is saying, this div is going to say, hey, even though we've explicitly said be 200 pixels high, it's still going to do whatever the text in here, the P, is going to force this thing to push down and grow larger. So what we can do is if you want to say, hey, I don't want that to happen, you can say max height. You can use min width, you can use min height and max height together to explicitly say, do not grow any bigger than 200 pixels, and see what's going to happen. Well, now, like I said before, overflow, now it's going to overflow. And so when you go to design your web page or web application, you have to be mindful of like what font sizes you use and how big you want to make your divs. Okay. So let's come in here and hit Control Z and get this back down to div div 01. Okay. And I'll hit Control S to save. So I just want you to be aware of that. Okay, so we've got all these children classes created, and now I want to talk about a parent. And this is an important concept to know about layout. And let's go ahead and create another div, and let's make some spaces, and let's call this class a parent, like your mother and father. So your parent, so in layout and CSS, so with one of the concepts that you'll need to know is a parent-child relationship. And so basically in layout, the children are inside of the parent. So let's go ahead and just to show, I want to make a parent class. So we'll come up here to our CSS. We'll make a parent class, do a period, paste the parent, make some space, and then we'll make this an inline block. Okay. And then we want to explicitly tell the parent to take up 100% of the page. Okay. And because what we're going to do is we're going to nest or put inside all the children into the parent. And the parent will be like a big container that holds all the small children, right? So we'll need to float it, float left, Control V to paste. And because it's going to be empty, we need to do a min-max height to basically say, force it to be visible for us. Okay? And like we've done with the border here, I want to show the parent. I'm going to copy and paste a test class that we've been using, and I'll name this test parent. And I'll go ahead and change this to red. Okay, Control S to make all the saves. Control S to save everything we've changed. And I want to take this parent class we've created, and I want to apply it to this div. And if everything worked right, we should see. Let me go in here and just for funsies, I'll put in here parent. Okay, hit Control S and refresh. All right, so as you can see here, we've got our parent div, and you can see here, I'll scroll in and scroll out. It goes the whole width of the screen, and we've got our little children below. Now, a lot of frameworks out there run on this kind of principle. And if you're familiar with Bootstrap, you're going to have like what they call a container. And I'll show you that here in a minute. But let me go ahead and paste some more parents in here. I'm going to refresh the page. So now we've got all the parents. And these are the containers, but this is where all of your children are going to go into. Okay. So let's go ahead. We already know that's our parent. So let's go ahead and get rid of these. I'll just go ahead and get rid of one of the parents. So we're going to nest, or we're going to embed or put inside all of our children into our first parent. All right. So I Control X and Control V, and we need to format our code. So highlight everything, tab over. And now our code is now nicely formatted. All right. So we have our four children, our four child divs inside or nested in our parent. So let's see what happens. Control S to save. Come to our page. Scroll up to the top and hit refresh. Okay, so now all of our divs, all of our 25% divs are now in the parent. And you can see the other two parents are down here. Well, that's pretty cool. So you can see where I'm going to go with this, of how you can make your own simplistic framework. Okay. So how about we copy these? We'll copy these. and then we'll come down in here. We'll come into our next parent. We'll hit paste, and then we'll go ahead and name this 5, 6, 7, and 8. Hit Control S. Come down here, hit refresh. Well, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we have our parent that we haven't used yet. Now, let's go in here. So how about, let's do something really, really powerful and really, really cool. Let's make a width class. All right, and this is, so we're going to hit period W and 50. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, all these W50, which means W for width, and 50 is 50%. So we're going to come in here and we're going to name this 50%. So let's go ahead and get rid of the child. We'll go ahead and just comment out the child, right? And hit Control S. So now the child, it doesn't know what width to be. Okay, let's see what happens when we do that. Well, it's all hosed up. And because of the inline block behavior, they all shrink up to take up the least amount of space, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this 50%, right? We're going to take this 50% class to say, hey, be 50%. We're going to take this W50 and we're going to come in here to our child classes, right? And we're going to come in here and paste that W50 into our child. And we're going to do this in our first parent class. So let's come in here and hit 50, Control V to paste, Control V, Control V, right? So hit Control S to save, and let's see what happens. Boom. Well, we broke it. And why did it break? Well, we're forcing the parent to be 200, so we have to go ahead and get rid of this 200 to allow the children to kind of like dictate to the parent to let it flow, if you will, to be the size of when these things wrap around. Hit Control S, come to the page, refresh. So here, 01, 02, 03, 04. All of this is parent 1, right? Because all of these 1, 2, 3, 4 are 50%, all right? And so they're taking up 50% of the screen. You zoom out, it's 50%. You zoom in, it's 50%. So let's get back to 100%. So what happens if we come in here and let's copy that, Control V to paste, and let's make a 25% class, right? And let's change this to 25% and hit Control S to save. So let's come in here and let's go ahead and quick select all of them, highlight the W50, hit hold Control, hit D, and copy all the instances of W50, Control V to replace with W25, hit Control S, and let's see what happens. Well, now all our divs are 25%. As you can see, in and out, they're all 25%. Okay? Well, this is really powerful. And this is really clean, simple code. You're not having to deal with all these calls and spans and like what CSS BootStrap CSS is having you do. And if you understand this, you can come in here and make your own simple framework that's lightweight and modular. And modular is a word I haven't used yet, I don't think. And modular means blocks. Like you can take things in and out, and you only need what you need. You don't have to put in a whole bunch of code that you don't need. So now let's do something fun. let's do 33 if you want to divide up into thirds. Now, one thing you want to do that I've found in my experience is you want to go ahead and give it a couple of decimal places, right? You want to go 33.333. You want to make sure that it goes all the way, all right? So let's come in here, and we've made our 33 class. So let's copy that. We'll come up here, and we'll do the quick hold down Control, hit D, D, D. So we've selected all the 25. Control V to paste. We've changed it all to 33. Control S to save. Control S to save on the CSS. Come back to our page. And then what happens? Well, everything's a third now. Well, that's pretty cool. All right. So what happens if you just do without the decimals? If you just do 33 without the decimals? And Control S to save. Come back here. Refresh. Well, now we've got a gap. And that's because of the way math works and mathematics. So as I developed my own framework, I found that if you extend out the decimal places, you know, it gets rid of that gap. So, and 3 places have been good enough in my all of my frameworks that I've used in all my applications. So let's go ahead and make this nice and neat. Let's go 4, 5, and 6. Right? Come up here, hit refresh. So now we've got 33, 33, 33, 33, 33, 33, 33, tongue-tied. Okay, so let's do the same here. Well, let's come in here and we'll do the 25 for this test parent down here. Come in here, paste, 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 Control S. So now this parent up here is running 33s. This parent in here is doing 25%. Let's come back to our code, and then let's come in here. Let's copy just 2 of these. We'll go ahead and put some children in this parent, and then we'll change these to 25. And then we'll go div 9 and div 10. Control S to save, come back here, and then refresh. So now this div is only 25, right? And we haven't put anything in here. So for funsies, let's come in here. Let's come in here, and let's put a 33. And we'll make that 11. And hit Control S to save, refresh. So now we've got a 25, a 25, and a 33. Okay, so let's have some more fun, shall we? Let's come down here. Let's make another div. We'll copy the parent. We'll paste it. Format the code. Okay, so we've got another parent that's empty. So let's take a 25, and I'll make it easier to show you what's happening. And let's go 25%. All right, and let's go up here and we'll grab a where is it? Okay, I guess I don't have any 50s right now. Duh. So come in here and we'll make this a 50, right? And let's change this to a 50% class. And then we'll copy this again, copy that 25 and 50. So now we've got a 50% sandwich between a 25 and 25 in this new parent div. So come here to the page, refresh. We've got our 25, 50, 25. And so I got tired of using BootStrap CSS because it just has so many columns and spans and divs nested within divs, and it just gets, for me, it's a headache. And the CSS and the BootStrap CSS is just an enormous file, relatively speaking. And, you know, I hate being constrained by what BootStrap dictates. And in here, with the beauty of this little system that I've developed, is you can come in here and you can develop, you can come in here and make a 50, a 25, a 15, you can make a 75, you can make a 66 that'll work well with a 33, you can make a 12.5 that'll work with a 50, 25, and things like that. And you can make the code so much simpler and so much concise and so much modular if you do something like this. All right. So I think this has been a pretty good tutorial to introduce you to like a concept of box model and box layout, and how you can develop your own simplistic framework where you're not using Bootstrap anymore. So with that, I'm going to get myself another cup of coffee and relax for a bit, and then head off to the gym. And I will see you later. Bye bye.